without further ado, let's get into the show. It is the International Day of, we're recording as of May 10th, I believe. Yes. Mother Ocean Day.
One.
Mother Ocean Day.
Mother Ocean.
What do we all think?
Your favorite is stay up all night.
Mine is stay. Yeah, well, that's what I did last night preparing for the script. After we had a long session about that, didn't we, Daniel?
Well, that's a good intro to who is on the call with us, isn't it? They've been sitting patiently listening to us go back and forth.
We're the master of the seg.
Let's give a great introduction to our guests after these shenanigans, shall we?
Yeah, so I think what we do today is we're going to start something a little bit different. I have my new favorite book here. We just saw it. And welcome Barry and Daniel to the show. What we'd like you to do is have a little time, introduce yourself, get to know, let the audience get to know you. Barry, let's start with you.
Thanks very much. Really appreciate being here, and really want to get on the next Radiohead show. So I'm just putting that in right now, please. Favorite episode. So when we deconstruct the next record, I want to be on. It's great to be here. Thanks for having us. I'm Barry Kelly, co-founder, CEO of Thought Industries. Been working in online learning and product development, most of my career, and I'm very fortunate to be the CEO of Thought Industries and, be working in a really amazing industry where we're continuing to help organizations build value through educating customers.
Absolutely. Well put. Barry, it's amazing to have you. We also have, this is an amazing episode. We've got 4 of us here and a special guest star listening in. Daniel Quick. Daniel, you're also a long friend and also have been just like Barry on the episode before. Let's reintroduce you to the world.
Sure. Thanks for having me, you guys. So good to be back at CELab. I'm Daniel Quick, SVP of Learning Strategies at Thought Industries. Been at Thought Industries for a couple of years now. It's been a very rewarding experience. My team is responsible for driving our own customer education strategy, as well as conducting research and publishing content that empowers professionals in our industry, like this book, which was published a few weeks ago, and the audio book actually came out today. So yeah, we're really hoping this book will sit in your listeners' library as a reference book that can come back to time and time again as they're building out and improving their own customer education programs. Very excited to talk about it.
That's
super cool.
Real pillar content for the customer education bookshelf. Very exciting.
We are so excited about this. Well, I can't actually understand. We're extremely excited about this because the value of having something on our reference library, and I'm going to turn my camera off here because I do want to show this. I think this is fun. Where are my filters? None. Okay, now you see my crummy room. Love this book. It is the new library. I could show you my library over here.
It's so handsome. It's a handsome book.
It looks good, but we have
and also
this
just
one. What about this one? We got that one. We've got all these books here now. There's only a few books that we're
not talking about that one today.
We're not talking. Well, we are a little bit, aren't we?
The new one.
Okay, let's do this. Let's get in the origin story. Barry, this is a question for you. You're in the hot seat now. This is a great question. Let's talk about how this book came to be, and from your level. From an executive level, we're going to talk more about the investment you're making into this market, but the time and involvement in writing, having a team come up and getting all the ideas together and figuring out what you're going to do. I'd like to know we'd like to know more about how did you all think about this and why did you want to make this a big project of yours?
Yeah, thanks for asking. I think it goes back actually a couple of years. I believe it's the end of 2019. We, as an organization, work in a framework called Jobs to be Done. And we're working with this great consulting group called Thrive, based in Northern California. And it was really a process of us trying to understand and really get to the heart of what it meant to sort of drive success through the educated customer. And we wanted to break that entire process down for many reasons. I think first and foremost, really for us to help drive product development, to really understand You know, what are the needs in the market? Truly understand the individuals, what their daily work is like, what it means to be successful throughout, you know, the process of their career. And so it started really as a project that was ultimately focused on us building a more robust and research-backed product roadmap. You know, as a founder of a company and as a product person, you know, the company started out, you know, it was from all of the meetings I would do, from all the conversations, from my own personal research to work with the rest of the organization. That's kind of how we continued to drive product development. And we really wanted to accelerate and bring, as I said, much more research to bear as we've moved forward. So that's where it started. And that's kind of as far as I was thinking. And about 4 months into the jobs to be done research, probably a little bit more, maybe 6 months in, they came back with the 12 job steps. And it was like a lightning bolt at our company. It was just amazing, the clarity at which they were able to describe this journey and the needs, the fundamental needs of the individuals driving customer education in an organization. And it just opened up so a lot of creativity and a lot of thought process around different parts of our business. So we quickly made phone calls around the company, brought everybody in. So not only should this be a product-led strategy and project, but everybody, our go-to-market team, our marketing team, our content teams, everybody needs to be involved to really truly understand that we bring this to light. And that was essentially the sort of the beginning of the playbook originally. It evolved obviously from there. We featured the 12-step process at Cognition, which was our annual conference, and then from there we were fortunate enough to get connected with the folks at Wiley, who, you know, felt that this would be, as a publisher, thought this would be a fantastic idea for a book and to help us bring the story and the framework to the rest of the world.
That's amazing. There's some of the things that I heard in there, like keywords like success and research. These warm my heart because like that's really important to be able to go. I've got Adam. What is your term? Data informed. I love that term. We're really looking at the feedback loop instead of data driven. I like that conversation. That conversation point, the distinction between that, like we're really getting in and driving in. What are those 12 steps, right? And that's amazing. So going a little further though, Adam, you want to take the next question here on the list?
Yeah, sure.
I'll let you start diversify a little bit.
You're getting so choked up by the magnitude of this book that it's just hard.
Yeah, I got to take a breath. I'm like choked up.
Yeah, you know, can I add a little color to this? Because what's funny from my perspective is, you know, when I first came to Thought Industries, the framework, one of the first weeks that I was here, I think it may have been the first week, we had sort of a readout from Thrive when they presented these 12 steps. And I was like so excited to see it. But funny enough, before I even came to Thought Industries, when I was still at Asana, I was exposed to it because I got one of the surveys that Thrive sent out, and it asked me all these questions. And I remember thinking, you know, this is before I even was at Thought Industries. I remember thinking, this is a really interesting way of breaking down like all the jobs that I do. So, you know, and that, I think that's just to reiterate the point as well, that this framework was really developed after speaking and surveying hundreds of professionals in the industry. So it really is empirically like based framework, which was one of the things that I got really excited about.
Yeah, and at the same time, it's based in the real world experiences of those professionals, and then you've kind of synthesized that into something that is, I think, you know, pretty simple, actionable, stepwise, which is just, again, I mean, huge congratulations for putting this book out there and the amount of research that went into it, because the fact that you were able to synthesize that into something that was opinionated and kind of gives customer education leaders, how do I say this without saying a playbook, to run and to use.
Say a playbook.
A playbook.
It's okay. It's a playbook.
A very valuable addition. So maybe let's actually think about that research for a moment, right? Because we've been talking about it. So, like, why was this an investment worth making for Thought Industries? Because you could have taken all those same resources and invested them in marketing or sales or something like that. So tell me about kind of the research effort that went into this and how it was prioritized.
Yeah, I think, as I said, it really had a foundation in product development to begin with, because we were trying to really get to the heart of making sure that when we were building technology and we're building features, that they were there to solve very, very explicit challenges in the market. And, we had assumptions all the time, as many of us do, through conversations with our customers, through all of the other work that we do and all the inputs. As a product organization, you get a lot of inputs from the market at all times, trying to decipher. There's no shortage of those. And, we really wanted to tighten it up. In my career, I've used a few different product development frameworks and product management frameworks. And this was something we hadn't done before. This organization, Thrive, who are amazing, led by Jay Haynes. They did a great job of helping us understand the value of taking this particular approach. So, as I said, we began to understand in a lot more detail, where the needs were, and the beauty of jobs to be done outside of just sort of listing, helping you understand, a sort of a product roadmap. It helps you heat map where you're competitive. It helps you heat map where you're best, where you're going to get the most benefit from your development. Yeah. So it's probably saved us a lot of money in throwing useless features out there into the market. It's helped us really engage with the individuals and get to the heart of the problem, right? This is really like, what are the problems that we're solving and helping them solve on the day-to-day basis.
It's actually kind of an interesting point for customer education leaders who work at software companies to think that if your education programs are that impactful, they could actually be an investment that outweighs your software development, right? Like, I love the idea that you can kind of take that lesson and apply it to a company that doesn't actually do a customer education as its bread and butter, but maybe can come a little bit closer to it. That's cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
So maybe just to follow up on that, Barry, you've been CEO for a while now, and there are a lot of listeners who might be wondering, how can we get our leadership to, into a space like you're in? This belief that customer education is a place to invest. Right. What advice would you give them?
Well, a couple of things, I suppose. We have a pretty unique view on the world, and I'm very fortunate to work in to be the CEO of a company that actually, makes technology that does this. So I'm a little easier convinced than most, but, I think, we would hope so too, anyway, wouldn't you? But I think, I think, one thing the piece of advice I would always give is to kind of really understand the current and the global strategy of the organization. When I mean global, I mean, what is the sort of overarching strategy for the organization at a specific period of time? And in software companies in particular, we grow, we have lots of different growth stages. All of you really understand those different stages and what's involved in those. There's different demands, there's different metrics, different KPIs we're focused on. There's always work-ons, right? There's always things to improve on. There's always optimizations. And I think, my first piece of recommendation is to try and get as close to really understanding a very clear understanding of what that is. What is the conversation that's happening at a leadership level at the company around the work that needs to be done, the goals that need to be met? What is the organization reporting to the board or to the advisors or to anybody else along the way, so that you can clearly understand that? I think that's it, because, you can make assumptions about what's important this year, or assumptions about what's important in terms of optimizations. But until you really clarify those, with that team, I think you can be slightly you can be shooting in the dark a little bit. So first of all, get that. I would say at your organization, if there's somebody that leads FP&A, so, financial planning analysis, and there will be a lot of analysts at a company. There's going to be a lot of sales ops, there's going to be marketing ops, there's going to be, CS ops, and all these different folks who are really great at getting data. But if there's somebody at your organization that's focused on really big picture metrics, to someone that's focused on analyzing the business on behalf of the executive team and the board, they're going to provide you with details that you may or may not be able to get access to in other parts of the organization. That would be a really, that would be one of those things I would suggest. Go seek out that person, and help them have you understand, what's critical and how the organization is measuring the business, over the course of that year or the coming year. And then,
wow.
I think, and then sort of as we get into the book and we get into talking about, more of the tactical or strategic parts later on, I think you have to build a bridge. So every leader has to build a bridge between sort of customer education and those particular goals. And I think the challenge is, how do you get that presented? How do you get that seen? How do you engage in conversation with leadership in the executive boardroom so that they understand, the value of what you're doing, how everything you're doing is directly connected to those particular metrics in the business at the time?
Yeah, because there's a lot of customer education leaders, managers, teams of one out there who are actually quite good at the later steps in the book already, which are more around like content production and measurement, because that's the background they come from.
Yeah.
And so they'll go to the executive leadership team and they'll kind of try to talk about what's working or not working at those steps, but they're maybe missing the earlier ones where they really have to frame this through the lens of the business problems. And if you're going to your executive team and you're not really telling any kind of story about how this is going to move the needle at the big picture, or how this is going to help the company somehow get to where they're trying to go through customer education, then you're probably less likely to get the sort of resourcing that you're asking for to get it done.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think sometimes maybe, organizations have probably, like, sometimes they try to solve problems through product development or product management, right? They don't, maybe the first, maybe they're not immediately inclined to go to the education group to solve a problem, right? Hang on, we're dealing with time to value right now. So maybe it's something to do with the way that we're onboarding our customers, or the way that our product works for first-time users, or all of those sort of things that are challenges or optimizations for organizations over time. And I think helping them understand how important the education process and strategy is in solving those problems is pretty critical. And so that, I feel like sometimes sort of top-down direction can kind of be misguided in terms of where it's focused. So I think helping organizations really understand, your ability to impact these core metrics of the business is really critical in advocating for the group and what you do.
Yeah, I want to go back to reiterate something you said, Barry, that I actually have not heard before, and I think is stupendous. It's that going to the FP&A person. Like, I've worked with some of these people, and the last company I was with, I was friends with that person. I didn't even think about it, Barry. Like, can we go grab go get a Guinness, a pint, and sit down, and can you take, like, because this is a friend of mine, and if I had thought, wow, could you take me through the bigger picture? Like, what are you really seeing from a fiscal point of view? And then if I could have a conversation with that kind of person and talk about the educative landscape of that, that's where you said in your statements before was that it's really about getting that understanding of, okay, if I can go and say, okay, I'm going to go to my executive, Rob, here's what I'm seeing. I've got this data. I've talked with our finance team, actually. I've talked with our ops team. And now these are the decisions that we can make together. What of these things would you like to do? And that changes the conversation palpably, because now I'm talking above the line with that leader, which is super important.
I want to call out, Sam, who's been with our company for a long time, who leads our FP&A, and I rely on him so heavily, him and our CFO, way beyond just sort of, information around the sort of financials of the company, really focused on, conversion rates, data impact, all of the different things, actually over the last 3 weeks, we've been kind of moving through whole, different areas of the business and analyzing them in quite different ways than we've ever done before. And those are, turning up really important insights that we need to then go action back into the organization. And so, these individuals will have data, they will have analysis of parts of the business that are going to be incredibly valuable to anybody kind of delivering, these programs.
Absolutely. I have to say one real quick story. I'll make it short. My stories get long. But one time, Barry, when I was working with the data team, I actually was talking with like one of the chief data scientists, and we had finally gotten to the point where we were able to tie in our learning data via Salesforce connection to our CMS data. And I get this hurried phone call saying, "Oh my God, Dave! Oh my God! Your team is making such an impact on our total retention rate." And unfortunately, the guy left after that. But those kinds of moments where you have that click and insight, where our data comes together at a leadership level, and you see the trend of what education can do, it's amazing.
It is really, it's amazing. Yeah. I mean, I think we'll probably get to this later on in the conversation, and this comes back to the sort of, the conversation that we always gravitate back to, which is measurement, right? And how critical it is, how difficult it is, but also like how critical it is at all stages, from analyzing where you go to, changing course on your way through to, being mobilized to different parts of the business to be part of, new programs. And then Daniel will talk about that. He moves around quite a bit, when we start to look at, new areas that need to be optimized or accelerated.
Absolutely. So let's shift our discussion a little bit. One thing that I'm curious about is this, and this is for both of you, and this could be a quick question, is how's this book? Okay, we're getting back to the book. Now we've got a playbook. It's permanently in my library. How is this, though, different from some of the books that we have on the market? And I'm going to say one of the things I really love is I'm going to go back. I'm a collector. This was Nick Mehta, Lincoln Murphy, and Dan Steinman's book. And I like how this is patterned.
He's holding up the customer success book if you're listening.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. We're an audio podcast. I'm looking, but I like how you brought the voices.
It's an auditory medium.
You brought the voices in. Gosh, I'm trying to be serious, Adam. Gosh. No. I like how you brought the voices of the industry in, and that you've got leaders from across the board sharing. And this is kind of new for us because, we're 10 years ago, customer success is kind of where customer ed is today. And leaders are seeing and recognizing, oh my gosh, this can do such a big thing. So that was really cool. Tell me a little bit more about how does this stratify or fit into our ecosystem, so that I know, but I want to hear from you.
This is really important for us. And I'm glad that you held up that customer success book, because I actually took inspiration from that. I read that book before we started writing this book. It was published by Wiley as well. So I really wanted to get a good sense of what a Wiley book was like. I talked to Dan Steinman on the phone for a good hour or two before I started writing, and which was a wonderful conversation. And if Dan's listening to this, thank you. I'll always be grateful for that. And I one of the things that struck me about the customer success book is that a lot of those chapters are authored by contributors, customer success leaders in the field, who really bring their perspective to the book. And I think as a result, the book is a lot more powerful. It's you're really thinking about this not only through the lens of the authors, these three guys who worked at Gainsight, but also through people in the field who were doing this in their programs. Similarly, we really wanted to bring that to this book as well. It was important for both Barry and I that we had contributors in the book like yourself, Dave, and yourself, Adam, who can offer your perspective on how you do these
we're
steps.
In it.
You're in it. Yeah, you're one of the 12 contributors. So yeah, each of the 12 steps in the framework brings in a perspective from a leader in the field who shares their experience and thoughts about that step and how that it shows up in the work that they do day to day. And as a result, the book is not just about my perspective or Barry's perspective or the research we've done, but about the practical methods and kind of advice that people who are doing this can provide to the readers, which I just think is awesome. And I those are some of my favorite parts of the book, let's say.
I mean, practical is a really good word to put against that, right? Because it actually telling the stories of customer education leaders in their own words who have done the job just adds to that like the ethos of the book, right? You're providing, first of all, kind of practical things to do at every step of the way as you're building your program or running your program. And then you actually have people who have done it, which is just really nice to add that case study element because it makes it real.
Yeah, I really think it does. And I think it offers the readers some different perspectives too. Like the goal in having these contributors was not to echo everything that was just written in the chapter, but really, to provide, okay, how does Adam think about this in the world? And you might, in your contribution, Adam, in your contribution, Dave, you brought in some of your own frameworks or the ways that you think about the work that you're doing, which, I think just added a sort of multiplicative impact to the book in terms of like the kinds of the different sort of mindsets that people use to achieve success in these roles.
To expand on that, Daniel, the thing that I keep saying is, well, let's turn this around. Like you're a learning experience platform. We have different words that we're trying to express for that. But what we're really doing is engaging with somebody and trying to build a program for them to understand. And that's hard, and it changes for every environment. I can't give you just one best practice. I have to show you a spectrum. So bringing those voices in is really important because, Adam, we've had the good fortune of working kind of together apart and had a parallel journey. Went through, this is really funny. I would like to tell the story is we were at one company, it was kind of similar size, and then we both changed. We went to another company that was kind of the same thing. And then we went to another one that were both unicorns. And now we're at a different thing. So we've seen all kinds of stuff when we share this. And the big point that we try to make with CELab is that this is a laboratory. We're getting all these experiences. We're testing it. We're experimenting. We're trying. We're sharing. It's a true science. I mean, I used to be a scientist, and that's the big thing about science is that we share and we share the failures too. And by doing that, become stronger. So this book really encapsulates for me, some of the things I like the framework. I like the fact that it uses the language of customer success. That is probably the prerequisite. I'm getting ready to hire or onboard a member of my team. And the first thing that I will do with that team member is have them read these books to say, you're an instructional designer. You already know that, but you don't know this. The differences that are palpable, how we do things is different depending on different times. In early phase, we're reading in the book, I love the chapter or love the section where you're talking about video. Is this video or an interactive? That's a really cool conversation to me because it might be different. If I'm early phase, you know what? I'm going to whip out a video really quick. I might even take a webinar and break it up. But if I'm ready to IPO and I'm thinking about my board of executives and I'm thinking about my stock share, I'm going to be working to make really high intensity, really well done interactive videos so that everybody goes, ooh, wow, they got their, what together, but it's a different time and a different space. And I would tell people to do different things in those cases. So it's really cool. It's a great way to stratify.
Yeah, thanks for saying that. I think one of the key benefits to reading this book, if I may say so myself, is that there's a mindfulness about doing customer education that this book sort of brings into the picture, where you're really stepping back from just doing things because that's just the way you do them, and that's you're really just stepping back from that, and you're asking yourself key questions that help you formulate the best way to do this particular thing. Maybe your go-to way of creating content is just you're really good at articulate rise and you're just going to create these SCORM files all the time. But
when all you have is a SCORM file, every problem looks like a
nail and a hammer.
Gosh, I'm not squirmy enough to know how to end that.
But yeah, I mean, take a step back. Is this really the best format for this particular content? In what situations is it maybe better to do a short video versus a full length course? Each step along the way asks the reader to take a step back and ask themselves questions that help them formulate the right strategy for their content, for their measurement, for their distribution, all sorts of the sort of things that we need to think about in our roles as customer education professionals.
It's kind of like having you as a customer education leader also become your own consultant and step outside of yourself And I love how you framed some key questions at every chapter to help people do that. And if you're wondering maybe what some of those key questions and key takeaways are, maybe we could even kind of thumb through the first few chapters of the book and kind of see how it proves out. So we've proved value. That was kind of the beginning, and we've talked about that quite a bit. But what are some of the key takeaways, the key things you want to share? Dave, you want to frame this up?
Yeah, Daniel, I'm gonna target this to you directly because we had a conversation about, well, what'd you say? You're reading the book through for the 5th time. It's such a professor move. I used to do. I say that because I'm self-identifying. When I was a teacher and I taught at a university as an adjunct for like 8 years, what I would do before going to a course is I would like say I'm going to teach your book, read it again. I wrote the thing. I'm going to read it again. Right. And heck, I do that for our podcast. Every podcast episode, I will be here. We're recording it right now, but then I'll go and listen to it 2 or 3 times. Like, oh, Barry said this really cool thing here, and Daniel had this. So it's this experience of this feedback loop. So what are the things, Daniel, that have come out of this that, and I like to start with the unexpected, the little serendipities. What are the things that has come out that people might miss? Like what's novel and interesting about the experience that you've had here?
Yeah, reading it, I have read it several times now. And I think Barry can relate to this where, when in the beginning, Wiley had very specific expectations for how the content was created. And, each chapter had to be its own file, and it had to be formatted in a certain way. And like the figures were in a completely different file. And so I think it was a bit of a disjointed experience, just kind of reading as I'm reading what we're writing and trying to like, is this the best way to phrase that or not? It was
you're
difficult.
Deep in the editing part. Like I think the only thing that I can represent, because I just went through I recorded an album with a band, and that experience is disjointed. Like it's like we do this, but you do this 5 times until you get it right. So that's weird. So that's why you read the book afterward, to get the gestalt or the whole. Yeah,
I mean, it's actually a completely different experience reading the book, the actual physical book. And now, with this 5th read through, I'm actually highlighting things, which is a little weird because like I want to.
Oh yeah, I wrote this.
Who wrote this damn thing? I wrote that. Oh my God.
But it's a reference book for me too, because obviously we included stuff from our own experience, but as we said before, from the experiences of other people, and lots of frameworks are introduced here and kind of summarized. It's a synthesis of all what we feel like anyone who's doing this ought to know as they set out to do this. So of course, I'm going to reach for it time and time again myself as I'm thinking about different things to do. But the way I'll answer that question is that we going back to the whole genesis of this book and it being sort of based on these 12 steps. I think you might find yourself in the shoes of as a customer education practitioner.
You may find yourself living in a shotgun shack. Oh, I'm sorry, I had to do Adam.
Okay.
You remember the song?
We got to end this thing on time. We can't do.
We can't have
numbers.
Fun.
Well, you might be surprised at some of the steps that are in there, I guess is really the point. And I think even in some of the conversations I had with you, Adam, you were even surprised about one of the steps in there, step 7, which is all about educating the educators.
It's my least favorite step. I love all the other ones. I know there was a whole jobs to be done analysis around it.
But if you read the chapter, you might be like, oh yeah, of course. You need to have a plan for keeping in sync with the product release cycles. You need to have a good strategy for debriefing subject matter experts and sort of synthesizing what they know. Yeah. You need to have a plan for training your team to surface value proposition over just feature functionality. All those kinds of things are captured in that chapter.
Oh, and that's the thing, right? Like once you go kind of beyond the title or the name of the step or the name of the job to be done, you actually go look at it and you recognize pieces of what you're doing in there, or maybe in some cases pieces of what you could be doing and aren't doing today.
Yeah.
So it's helpful in that sense to actually go back and kind of like cross-check against your existing process.
Well, there's something else in here that I wanted to bring up, and that this is really important. You're continuously reminding like ourselves who our customers are and what they're dealing with, and they're dealing with a lot of different things, and it's varied, right? And different points of time. So there's a lot of different things in here that I've looked at, like, well, I didn't think about that, and I've been doing this for a while. So that's really important to be able to lay all these things out and have like this pragmatic playbook of different things I could pull off. And so I'm going to try this at this point. I'm going to try this at this point. And that's super important.
I hope that everybody who reads that has a similar reaction, because really we did write this book for both the business leader who is looking for strategies to drive engagement and conversions and retention, but also for practitioners who are both just starting and, thinking about what is it that I wish I knew when I first started. Like, here's everything that I've learned along the way. Much of it, by the way, from you, Adam, in my experience at Optimizely, as well as, I want this book to be for seasoned professionals as well who want to have a go-to reference, or want to maybe think about something a slightly different way, or hear the experiences of other people, or just be able to pull the book from the library anytime they need to do a specific job, and get ideas for how we think about it and others in the field think about doing that job. So I do hope it's going to be useful for both beginners and veterans of customer education.
Well, you think about like how some of the different parts of the book can operate as a reference. And, I think about, for instance, okay, the company strategy changes. You want maybe like an index or an inventory of how to react to, or not how to react, how to get in front of different strategies to actively drive them, because you don't want to be reacting. For instance, then first couple of chapters of the book, which are really around strategy and setting goals and how those tie into higher level company metrics, like this kind of gives you an inventory of ways to do it. And similarly, when you kind of get down to the steps on measurement, same idea, right? If you're looking for ways to measure the effectiveness of a new program that you're putting in place, or the metrics that the company is trying to tie to have changed, or your CEO comes to you and says, hey, I'm looking for a way to measure this. That's exactly when you want a reference like this, because if you don't have something like that, you're basically going around like furiously asking other people what they're doing.
Yeah. I want to expand on this too and drive home a few things that I thought were really good value adds and takeaways. And number one of the most important things for me in this, let's call it an industry now. Customer education is a thing. We've been talking to a lot more leaders, and I know Nick Mehdi even was on a recent podcast, and he's like, this is a thing. We recognize this. And what is the important part of it? Well, when I have this book to walk into my VP's office and they're challenging me on something, which they do, rightfully so, and that's their job. Sometimes they're wrong. I don't want to bring that point up. Like sometimes, like, how do I respond to that? Well, what does this help me do? It helps me continue to frame up my thinking about, okay, number one, let's go back to maturity model. At Thought Industries, we talk a lot about that, right? I know it well. It's a great way of looking at the world, but that's important. Where am I? Where am I on the map? We got to do that first. Then what you're talking about, this strategic point of view, and that is a space that's massive. And strategy is different when I start. Like when I start, I do an assessment. I talk to everybody. But when I'm ready to IPO, we're talking about a wholly different thing. So it's the planning and talking to people. I don't know why this is so but I've done this before. I've squirreled up. I've like sheltered myself, and I'm like, I'm just going to get this thing done, and I don't talk to folks for a while. And that insular mentality is damaging to you. You have to be talking and matrixing with everybody in your work all the time and evangelizing for yourself. And then you got to go with a map. right? It's like, I built this roadmap. Here it is. This is where we all talked about, executives. Barry, you're my CEO. Do you agree this is our map? And he's like, yes, this is our map. And we work together. Now I support you, Barry, as a leader, all the way down to the bottom line, right? All the way down to I'm the below the line leader. That's one of the things I've had the hardest time. Like, I coach a lot of people now. And in my role at Service Rocket, I'm able to talk to a lot of folks. And one of the most consistent things that we have a challenge with is building that map and connecting with a leader, and having that leader say, this is my map. And when you do that from the leadership perspective, oh my gosh, that's so empowering and powerful to all of us. So those are the things I think that are really important as I'm reading through this. And I'm about through my first read, and I'll be on to a second or a third. Well, I'll be doing what you do, Daniel. But those are some of I've got more takeaways, but I really like how that's articulated.
Yeah, I think those are really important. And I think if I think about our broader strategy as a company, just wanted to chat a little bit about learning strategies overall, right? Because, the organization that Daniel leads and does such an incredible job doing so, and he's, built it from the ground up at our company, is really designed to be, that sort of central area where the research, all of the best practices are collected, where all the ideas are kicked over and back, where we're absorbing everything that we're hearing from this incredible market and trying to make sense of them. And again, putting frameworks out there that will help people, move these projects along. These sort of job tasks as well in many, many ways. And it also helps us understand from the inside as we think, again, because it flows into everything we do. It flows into the way that we communicated to each other at the company, to the way that we think about how we go to market, what type of products that we create, the value that we're providing to our customers, how we provide, strategic oversight in their growth process. All of those things, kind of comes from this engine, but it has to be backed up with some sort of practical step-by-steps and guidelines as well. Yeah. And so that's the beauty of these artifacts when they get created. And the great thing about the book, which I think we both feel really satisfied with, is the fact that, kind of like mine here, there's lots of highlights and sticky notes in it. It's a very practical guide, right? I mean, I'm slacking Daniel. Hey, hang on, chapter 4, are we doing this?
No, he does actually do that. He does actually do that.
Hey, I just read this book. Daniel, go ahead.
Barry's my boss. And I got to say, it's really, really awesome having a boss who truly gets it. When someone really understands the power of customer education across the whole customer lifecycle, the power to leverage learning content in top of the funnel to drive brand awareness, to attract new customers, to deliver great product experiences, both for people in a trial or getting a demo or who are brand new to the product, reducing time to value, really transforming our customers into advocates just across the whole customer lifecycle. Barry's a big believer in that. And I think, his investing in the Learning Strategies team and supporting the work that we do, it's kind of meta because one of the big outputs of our team is this Customer Education Playbook, and part of that playbook is a big emphasis in that playbook. I would argue is really about, it's step 2. It's really about defining success for your customers. How do customers define success? How do they achieve success? And I think it's easy for educators who are working for companies to do customer education to sometimes forget about that, and they focus a little too much on the product training piece. How can we get customers to learn how to use the product? And I actually think executives, or leaders, business leaders, are even more guilty about that. That when you ask them what customer education is, a lot of them will be like, "Oh, that's like a product tutorial, right?" And that's basically, well, I don't need that. My product's really easy to figure out, or whatever. You'll hear lots of different
that all the time.
Reasons. You hear that all the time, right? But we've made a really big investment in expanding the scope of learning strategies and customer education to encompass developing a deep understanding of our industry, of who our customers are, of what are the challenges they're facing, of what are sort of best practices that will help address those challenges, as a way to, not only inform our product strategy, but also just like where we show up in every single place in the business, from customer success to professional services to marketing. We are really able to deeply empathize with our customers because we're always thinking about what success means for them. Yes. And what I love about this is almost full circle for me, because I remember when I first started in the customer education world at Optimizely, working for you, Adam, we would spend these days brainstorming about the kinds of customer education programs we want and the content we want. And we would talk about the importance of focusing on not just product training, but like industry education, like not just help someone set up an experiment in Optimizely and run an experiment, but like help them get like statistically significant results, help them get a lift somewhere on their website, like help them achieve success in their jobs. And what can we do as educators to educate our customers at Optimizely on how to be great experimenters, thinking about the strategy around experimentation. Barry totally gets that. And that's, it's just like a real privilege to be working for a company where the leadership is fully bought into the role that customer education can play in the business.
Yes.
I think Barry and I are going to give you a joint performance review now. But first we'll do the.
It's awesome. You should mention that. Have it right here.
Yeah, exceeds expectations, just like this book. But like that's like going back to the idea of the book being practical and kind of drawing from your experience, like that also I think is infused in the perspective that both of you share throughout the book. So, for example, even when you're talking, say, about creating content. There's always an urge to ground it, say, in like abstract learning principle, but you kind of thread that with, okay, let's actually situate this in what's practical for our customers and like what problems are we actually solving for our customers. Like, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more about how you approach that in the book.
I mean, I think I even say at one point that you have to make sure that when we put on our learning science hat and we're optimizing our content for learning transference and the way that people learn, sometimes we just risk throwing too many barriers between our customers and their goals and how they achieve success. Because remember, the goal is not about learning about the product, it's about achieving success in their jobs. So every minute that customers spend learning about our products is 1 minute less that they have using the product and service of their jobs. So if you create that really robust, grounded in learning science course that, maybe has this pre-quiz that sort of stimulates recall and maybe primes for what's coming, maybe that is going to be the barrier that, that busy customer is going to be like, I don't have time for this. I got to do my job. And now they're not engaging with your education. So there are times, I think, in the world of customer education where we're not talking about compliance training. We're talking about like totally optional types of education that we want our customers to feel intrinsically motivated to consume. Sometimes we just got to pull back at learning science. What's best practice for learning science and really optimize for like, how can we make this efficient for our customers who are busy, because that's really going to be the way to make it the most effective as well. Because education content that's not consumed is not effective content.
That's absolutely true.
Well put. All right, we are at time. I want to keep going. We're right at the end here. We only have a few moments, so let's wrap up real quick. Calls to action, things that are coming up with Thought Industries, with the book. How do we close this out? Where can we buy the book? Where can we get the book?
You can get the book on our website. You can get it from a lot of different places: Amazon, Target, Barnes & Noble. But we actually would love. We have like special special deals if you buy multiple copies of the book, for example. If you come to our website, we'll have a banner. Makes it really easy for you to find that you can purchase it from there.
All right. And before we close out today, anything really cool coming up? Well, definitely want to get out there and we advocate. Go out, pick up your copy of the book, learn all about this. What else is coming up with Thought Industries?
Well, one thing I'll mention, we just so in addition to the audiobook coming out today, we also released our a new page on our website all about the maturity model. It's a super colorful,
cool,
long page. Check it out. We're very proud of the work we've done there. And by the way, the maturity model, an overview of that model is concluded in the book near the end. The other thing that I will call out is that we do an annual State of Customer Education report that I know you guys are familiar with because you do podcasts on these.
We've covered it before, yeah.
Yeah, so that's our 2022 report is coming out in the next couple of weeks. So keep an eye out for that.
Heck yeah. All right. Well, Barry, Daniel, this has been amazing. We really thank you for your time. Any last words or things you want to say before we wrap up today?
Just thank you. I think, to both of you for all you do. I mean, we are huge fans right back at you here. I probably know about Daniel because I, discovered both of you in the early stages. And, you've really led the way in so many ways in the industry. We're so grateful for you. We're avid listeners and, we are very grateful to be part of this community. So thanks to you both. Thanks for having us on today. And we look forward to working with you in the future.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Barry.
Look forward to grabbing beers with you as well. It's been too long.
And working on our Radiohead cover band.
Come, please.
Got the sax right here. I'm ready to go.
All right. Well, if you, listener, have also got the sax and you want to learn more, we have a podcast website at customer.education. You can find show notes, resources, other material. And if you found value in this podcast, please share it with your friends, your peers over beers, and your network to find us and find the others. We're everywhere. You can find us on the socials. Go to thoughtindustries.com for more information on the book. Thanks to Alan Coda for providing our theme music. And if you're already subscribed, which we hope you are, please head over to Apple Podcasts or Spotify Podcasts or wherever you listen to and rate podcasts. And please leave us a nice 5-star review so we can, again, expose the reach of this podcast. So thanks for joining us. Go out and educate, experiment, and find your people. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.